Cradle, Dogs of Fount, Chapter 26, Part 1. Nate, Heather, and Ramsey were all together in the beginning of the engagement. They had to take ATVs to the old power plant in order to keep their cover. It was amazing how green everything here is, Nate thought. Some of the tree trunks near the point on the wooded hills were covered in vibrant green moss. He could see the power plant below, and it had moss on its south side, and it was even thicker than it was on the trees. To start off, the three of them teamed up to take out a multi-sting, which was a rocket launcher capable of unloading up to 30 rockets per loadout. Somehow Ramsey hacked into the status UI and found there were only 2 rockets loaded into the blocky army green launcher. They had to stay 30 feet away from it, or the sensor would notify the person in control, even remotely. So the trick was figuring out how to disable it, because even one hit close enough to Lou and his team would spell the end for them. It tugged at Nate that Ramsey didn't know if all the old squad was with Lou. He had barely seen Gary after the incident in the mountain. Nate wasn't too proud of that. He could still visualize the blood coming out of his stomach when they were attacked in the forest, fleeing from the Atlian base. The only reason they knew Lou was alive was because the intermittent updates on Heather and Ramsey's screens. They were kneeling silently together, trying to think of a way to silently take out the missile apparatus. Nate would be the last to have a valid suggestion due to being in Fount for more than half of his life compared to them. To the contrary, Nate had always been a quick study and would scrap just to understand something new, just to put a new notch on his belt. Even now he was ready to come up with a suggestion he was half sure of. "Heather, you still have some peanut butter left?" Nate asked her. She frowned, but took the black pack off her back and opened the back pouch. "A little less than half a jar," she answered. "You still hungry?" Nate dismissively but amiably shook his head. He turned to Ramsey, who looked like he was beginning to sniff what Nate was up to. "Ram, and that jar of honey, you still got it?" Nate asked. "Yeah, got plenty," the gray warrior answered. "What you trying to stick to it?" Nate smiled and took out his screen. "I have 2 scramblers in the case for my screen. If I turn the power up to 11, they may be able to burn out the launcher's processor and even the antenna. You realize that if you use your scramblers, they'll be able to track you and we won't be able to communicate with you?" Ramsey asked. "Omelet, bro," Nate quipped. Nate untied his boot and tugged his foot out. He was wearing thick, green crew stocks, which he thought would hold the sticky mess of the honey and peanut butter and still protect the scramblers from shorting out. He'd have to find Delilah for more of her custom socks. The Warrior brand just rarely fit well. He cracked open the case that was around his screen and had to fidget with it for a while before he could extract the first scrambler. It looked like a fuse you'd find on the car radio back in Fount. He got the second one out after a 5-minute ordeal and threw them in the sock. He tied a tight knot about where his arch would be. Next, he scooped some peanut butter in his hand and then poured honey on top of it. He squished the 2 together and kneaded it until smooth. He slathered the whole sock with the goop until it felt tacky enough. "Who wants the honors to take our only shot at sticking to that crap?" Nate asked. "Your idea, you're a screw-up," Ramsey said and smirked. "Settled," Nate smiled. "First I need some water to get dessert off my hands." Heather stood up from kneeling and walked over to Nate and poured water over his cupped hands from her canteen. Nate scrubbed and scraped until most of the paste was gone. "Thanks, Toots," Nate joked. I don't like that. I don't like Toots," Heather winked at Nate. Nate smiled and looked down and took a few deep breaths. He readied his aim and targeted a blinking red light in the lower corner, closer to them but still the required 20 feet away. He threw the sock and it landed right over the red light with a thick smack. It stuck there completely still for about 20 seconds and then slowly started to peel off and fall about 6 inches to the gritty dirt below. Nate and Ramsey looked back to Heather, who was monitoring with her sensor UI. She held up her finger. Is it working? Nate couldn't help but ask. However, Heather held up her finger and pushed it up to imply more time. They waited for 2 minutes, and then Heather deflated and slicked the top of her pate back.